I'm joined by a wide-ranging panel tonight here on Top Story. We have former acting DHS Secretary during the first Trump administration, Chad Wolf. He's currently the Executive Vice President of the America First Policy Institute. Former Chief of the NYPD, Terrence Monahan, a good friend of Top Story. Carmen Best, former Seattle Chief of Police and an NBC News contributor, and NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalas, who you see many times on this broadcast. So, Chad, I want to start with you. We know that Bovino is now out. Homan's on his way in. Is this an admission by the Trump administration that things simply got out of control in Minneapolis?
Well, I think this is certainly direction by the president that he wants Tom Homan, who's got sort of a unique skill set. He's a 30-year operator here, both Border Patrol and ICE, and understands the situation and probably can go in and talk with both the mayor and the governor about what needs to happen there to allow ICE to do its mission, but at the end of the day also to probably withdraw some of the ICE assets there, which is clearly what the governor and the mayor want. So for whatever reason, it wasn't working with the secretary and with Bovino.
Chad,
so,
let me stop you there.
Sometimes in these types of negotiations, you need to change it out.
You're somebody who held these roles, right? Not the exact roles, but you oversaw these departments. I mean,
right.
What didn't go right in your opinion?
Well, again, I think it's making sure that you're continuing to go out there and talk about what ICE is doing. And obviously they've done that. The secretary and Bovino have done that. But at some point, you've got to work with the locals and you've got to give them some conditions to meet so that you can sort of scale down the response there. We saw this happen, and I was a part of it in Portland in 2020. Over time, if you surge in local resources, you can withdraw some of the ICE assets there. And so I think that conversation between the federals and the locals obviously needs to go on. And to date, if it has gone on, it's been in the background, and I don't know much about it, so I'm going to acknowledge that. But I think sending Tom Homan in there is the president wants to make sure that that conversation between the federals and the state folks are happening.
It's a clear shift in strategy. Terrence, I want to talk to you. We're going to roll that video of what happened to Alex Preddy surrounded by those officers. What exactly went wrong here? As far as from a protocol standpoint, who did what wrong, and why did this man end up dead?
One of the things I'm looking at right off the bat is the massive use of the OC spray. When you're using that spray, you're trying to get someone into custody. You hit him in his face. His hands are going to go right up to his face. You want his hands behind his back. You want to control his hands. That much OC spray, how much of it is making it not just into the person you're looking to get into the custody, but also into the cop's eyes? That causes issues. Next, you have way too many cops trying to control this individual. Too many arms, too many legs into the mix. You're not able to get control of that individual's hands, get them cuffed. And that's your ultimate goal. Control his hands, get the cuffs on, get him into custody as quickly as possible.
So surrounding someone like that, Terrence, surrounding someone like that in the way we saw it, that is not what you learned, that is not what you teach?
No, too many individuals reaching in. They get in the way of one another. 2 to 3 individuals at most should take to get that individual down, to get him under control. When you have 5 or 6 individuals, each grabbing at different body parts, yelling different directions, it gets harder and harder to get that individual into custody quickly.
Terrence, when you remove a weapon from a suspect, what is the procedure there?
Quickly, you want to get the weapon as far away from the subject as possible. So what that agent did, removing it off of his waist and then walking away quickly with it, because you don't know if it's going to go off or not, the way it was grabbed, if it was cocked or not. He did the right thing, and he yelled the idea of gun. Whether or not, when he removed it, a round was fired, well, that's something that's going to be part of the investigation, and it causes confusion at that point if a round had gone off after he had gotten that gun. So this is all part of an investigation that, they should have this information at this point.
Carmen, we heard at least 10 gunshots on the eyewitness videos. In what situation would firing a gun that many times be warranted? And from what you can see in the videos from this encounter, were officers following any type of protocol that you learned or have taught?
Well, to put it in non-technical terms, it was quite the cluster. Just as Chief Moynihan was saying, the fact that there were so many officers, arms everywhere, people grabbing, it doesn't look like there's any constructed training in terms of how they're going to take the person into custody. When you spray a person's face with pepper spray in that manner, it's very disorienting. And so the need for so many people to be there grabbing is really inexplicable. And then after the gun is removed, I guess as we know that there'll be a further investigation about who, shot when and why. But that number of rounds with all those other officers around even presents clear danger, not only to the suspect, which was struck and killed, but to the other officers that are there, not realizing who's shooting and where the shots are coming from. Quite dangerous and quite chaotic all the way around.
Danny, we saw, some criticism from members of the Trump administration in the very beginning, saying that Preddy went there with a loaded firearm, essentially looking for trouble. We later learned that he had a permit. He was able to carry the weapon the way he was carrying it. And at the core of the Second Amendment, which is incredibly ironic here, is the founding fathers put part of the Second Amendment into the Constitution, not only so citizens could protect themselves from crime, but really to protect themselves from government, correct?
Yes, that's true. And the Second Amendment does require, at least especially in the expansion of Second Amendment rights by the Supreme Court over the last decade, the Second Amendment means that you can open carry a firearm at a protest. But that's not really the ultimate analysis here, because that's not really what happened. Now, there's some division on the authority whether or not a police can even approach you for the only reason that you're open carrying. If you're making furtive movements, if you're concealing it, if it's a bulge, if you're in a high crime neighborhood, those are all factors that will elevate police's chances of having not probable cause, but what's called articulable suspicion, the Terry stop standard, to stop someone, investigate, and make sure that the person is not dangerous.
Chad, I want to ask you, you've seen all the videos out there over the last several weeks. This is the second fatal shooting that has happened in Minneapolis. There are a lot of ICE agents there, a lot of Border Patrol officers as well there in the streets. We know there's thousands of them. From what you can see, there's been some questions about training and the tactics. From what you can see and from your experience, do you think people went in there without the proper training? And again, we should mention they were dealing with a lot of protesters. They were dealing with a lot of uncertainty. They're dealing with freezing temperatures, physical ice on the ground. They're slipping and sliding. There was a lot they were up against as well.
Yeah, just from what I know, ICE as well as Border Patrol go through extensive training, so I don't have any concerns on that front. I think, look, you got to continue to look at the situation there, and they would never be in this position if the local officials would just cooperate with ICE, let them into their jail settings, provide some police protection and riot control and all these things that they don't do. So ICE is having to do that on their own. And so I think if we can keep ICE to its core mission, which is to arrest dangerous criminal illegal aliens, and keep all the other missions to local police, I think is the best case scenario. I've been very clear. I'm going to let the investigation play out. I don't like characterizing the motives of any of these individuals. I don't know who they are. And you really need to take eyewitness testimony. You need to understand what's happening before the incident, what commands are given to these individuals that they're not obeying. There's a lot to still come out, and I think we need to let that play out.
Chad, some of the members of the Trump administration described Preddy as a, quote, would-be assassin, as a, quote, domestic terrorist. Do you think that was fair? Do you think that was smart? And do you think that is the absolute truth?
Again, I just answered that. The way I approach this, and I was at DHS where there were several officer-involved shootings. You always want to let that investigation play out. Now, at the same time, obviously, there's a video, and there's the environment which you just described, very chaotic, very hectic, with a lot going on. You've got a vehicle in one case. You've got, while someone does have a concealed carry permit, that's fine. Of course, the officers didn't know that. And why do you show up, to an event and then insert yourself in the middle of a law enforcement operation and don't obey the commands, and you don't tell the officers that you're carrying as well? So there's a lot going on that has to be unpacked here to understand that. And I think, again, I would say let the investigation play out. Terrence, before we go, what does Tom Homan have to do to get things under control in Minneapolis?
Got to talk to the mayor, the governor. Got to get the local police involved. You don't need the local police involved in immigration enforcement, but the local police know how to handle protesters. They know how to keep people safe during protests. They know how to move in and make an arrest quickly of a protester as opposed to how the federal agents who don't do that. They don't train on how to handle protests. Local enforcement needs to be there. They are the experts when it comes to handling protests.
Terrence Monahan, Carmen Best, Chad Wolf.